September 23rd. The value of persistent prayer is not that He will hear us, but that we will finally hear Him. William McGill. Jesus commanded persistent prayer. He exhorted us to keep on asking, seeking, and knocking. This doesn't mean that prayer is a form of spiritual nagging. God hears us even before we utter a word in prayer. But do we hear Him? The story of Hannah is a powerful example of how persistent prayer results in us hearing God. Hannah was married to Elkanah, who also had a second wife, Peninnah. Hannah was childless, while Peninnah had several sons and daughters. And, to add to Hannah's grief at her barrenness, Peninnah kept mocking her. Surely Hannah prayed desperately for a child, especially every year when the whole family went to sacrifice to the Lord at Shiloh. Yet there was no answer. And then, one year, everything changed. We read in 1 Samuel 1. Once, when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. Early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. What changed? Did Hannah's nagging finally work? Not at all. Rather, Hannah finally heard God. Her prayer changed from what she desired to what God desired. Hannah went from asking for a son for herself to asking for a son for God's service. You see, in a time of social lawlessness and spiritual corruption, God was looking for someone who would be dedicated to His purposes and raised in His presence. In her desperation, maybe even unknowingly, Hannah heard the desire of God's heart, and her prayer changed. God answered. Samuel was born, and the rest is history. As the Bible records, the Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. Today's prayer, Lord Jesus, help me to persist in prayer until I finally hear you.